It's 1 a.m. You're exhausted. You have to be up in 6 hours, and you are absolutely, defiantly not going to sleep. You told yourself just one more episode 3 episodes ago. Your eyes are heavy, your alarm is set. Every rational part of you knows you'll regret this. And yet here you are, awake in the quiet, scrolling, watching, doing nothing in particular, while the rest of the world sleeps. And tomorrow, when you're dragging yourself through the morning on too little rest, someone will say it, or you'll say it to yourself. Why don't you just go to bed earlier? Get it together. But here's what almost nobody understands about people who stay up late. For a huge number of them, it isn't laziness, and it isn't a broken willpower. There are actually two completely different forces that keep people awake in the dark, and one of them isn't a choice at all. It's written into your DNA. Let's start with the biology, because this is the part that should let a lot of people off the hook they've been hanging on for years. Every human being has something called a chronotype. It's your body's natural preference for when to sleep and when to be awake, and it sits on a spectrum from the extreme morning person, the lark, to the extreme night person, the owl. And here's the crucial thing. Your chronotype is not a habit you picked up. It's substantially genetic. Researchers studying the DNA of hundreds of thousands of people have identified hundreds of specific genetic variants associated with whether you're a morning person or an evening person. There are actual genes with names that run your internal clock, and in some people, those genes are simply set to run late. So when a night owl can't fall asleep at 10 p.m., and can't function at 6 a.m., they are not being difficult or undisciplined. They are running the exact program they were born with. You were never refusing to be a morning person. For a lot of people, the parts to be one were never installed. And to understand why that matters so much, you have to understand the clock that all of this is running on. Deep in your brain sits a master clock that governs your circadian rhythm, the roughly 24-hour cycle that controls when you release melatonin, when your body temperature rises and falls, when you feel alert and when you feel sleepy. In a morning person, that clock runs early. In a night owl, it genuinely runs late. Their melatonin, the sleep hormone, doesn't start flowing until much later in the night, and their natural window of peak alertness lands in the evening, sometimes long after dark. To a true night owl, being forced awake at 6 a.m. feels, biologically, like the middle of the night, because for their body it is. And here is the real problem. The entire world is built for the larks. Work starts at 9. School starts at 8. The whole structure of society runs on a morning person's schedule. So night owls are forced, every single day, to wake up hours before their body is ready. A researcher named Till Roenberg gave this a perfect name: social jet lag. Night owls live in a permanent state of jet lag, not because they traveled anywhere, but because they're forced to live in a time zone their body never agreed to. So that groggy, foggy, lazy feeling in the morning isn't a character defect. It's the symptom of a person living in the wrong time zone without ever leaving home. Now, here's where it's worth pausing to call out something unfair, because the bias against night people runs deep, and it's mostly nonsense. Our entire culture moralizes the morning. The early bird gets the worm. The endless worship of the 5 a.m. club. The idea that all successful, disciplined people leap out of bed at dawn. But that's not science. That's just a value judgment, built by morning people, for morning people, that quietly brands everyone else as lazy. And it isn't even accurate, because night owls aren't less capable, they're just differently scheduled. In fact, research suggests that a slightly tired brain, late at night, is actually a more creative brain. When you're a little fatigued, the mental filter that normally keeps your thoughts focused and on track loosens up, and that lets more unusual, unexpected ideas slip through. It's part of why so many artists, writers, musicians, and inventors have done their best, strangest, most original work in the dead of night. The night owl isn't the slacker the proverb makes them out to be. Very often, they're the ones still awake, quietly creating something. But biology is only half the story. Because here's the twist: plenty of people who stay up late aren't night owls at all. They're genuinely exhausted. They desperately want to sleep, and they still refuse to go to bed. And for them, something completely different is going on. Psychologists have a name for it now, and the moment you hear it, it explains everything. Revenge bedtime procrastination. Here's the idea. Imagine a person whose entire day is swallowed whole by obligations. Work, commute, chores, kids, errands, the endless demands of other people. They get to the very end of that day having had not one single minute that genuinely belonged to them. So what do? They take that time from their sleep. They stay up late, scrolling, watching, doing nothing important. Not because they aren't tired, but because those quiet hours after midnight are the only ones the world isn't allowed to steal from them. It's called revenge because that's exactly what it is. A quiet, exhausted act of rebellion against a life that feels like it belongs to everyone, except you. The revenge isn't aimed at a person. It's aimed at the day itself, for taking everything and leaving nothing. And the research backs this up, because bedtime procrastination is tied to self-control. By the end of a long, draining day, your willpower is simply spent, and the part of you that's supposed to march you off to bed just doesn't have the strength left to win the argument. And there's a reason the night, specifically, feels so precious to these people, so worth sacrificing sleep for. Think about what your day actually feels like. You're reachable, watchable, on call. There's a constant low hum of being needed, of phones buzzing, of people wanting things from you, of being, in some quiet way, always on display. And then night falls, and all of it goes silent. The messages stop. The demands stop. Nobody needs anything. The whole world, for once, lets go of you. For people who are overwhelmed or deeply introverted or endlessly responsible for others, those dark, quiet hours are the only time they feel truly unobserved and free. Staying up late isn't always about the screen in their hands. It's about the silence. It's about that rare, delicious feeling that, for just a few hours, they don't belong to anyone but themselves. Now, in the interest of honesty, none of this makes the late nights free. When your body wants 3 a.m. but the alarm goes off at 6, the lost sleep is real. And over time it taxes your mood, your focus, and your health. That part is true, and it matters. But here's the key, even there. The problem usually isn't a broken person who just can't be disciplined. It's a mismatch. It's a person whose natural clock, or whose deep need for a sliver of freedom, keeps colliding with a world that was built for somebody else. Forcing yourself onto a morning person's schedule isn't always discipline. Sometimes it's just the slow exhaustion of fighting your own wiring, night after night. So here's what I actually want you to take from all of this. If you're someone who stays up late, you are very probably not lazy, and you are very probably not broken. You may simply be wired to run late, quietly living jet-lagged in a morning person's world. Or you may be someone so generous with your waking hours that the only way left to reclaim a piece of your own life is to steal it back from the dark. Either way, the answer was never just go to bed earlier. The night owl in you isn't a flaw to be fixed. It's biology to be understood, and a quiet hunger for freedom to be honored. Those hours after midnight were never wasted. For a great many people, they are the only hours that were ever truly, completely their own. If this hit home, go ahead and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel. And if you want to support these deeper dives, hit the join button to become a member. I'll see you in the next one.